This is North Korea, one of the most isolated and authoritarian countries in the world. Since its founding after World War II, it has been ruled by a single family, the Kim dynasty. It all started with Kim Il-sung. He built the country around an ideology called juche, which emphasizes self-reliance and absolute loyalty to the leader. Then his son, Kim Jong-il, strengthened that system even further, and now the country is led by Kim Jong-un, continuing the same legacy. One thing is very clear here. Dissent is not tolerated. Power is completely concentrated in the hands of the supreme leader. There are food shortages, widespread suffering, harsh punishments for dissent, and countless reports of human rights abuses from defectors. And yet, despite all of this, there's almost no real sign that this system is going to change anytime soon. For decades, Western countries have hoped that North Korea would eventually move away from Chinese and Russian influence and become more like South Korea, democratic. But realistically, that has never seemed very likely. So the real question is, why hasn't there ever been a successful uprising or military coup in North Korea? When was the last time you even heard about a serious attempt to overthrow the Kim family? They've been in power for over 70 years. There have been famines, economic crises, leadership failures, and still, no successful rebellion. To understand this, we first need to look at how coups usually happen. Typically, a coup involves part of the armed forces, often led by dissatisfied generals, moving toward the Rajdhani or key government buildings, forcing the leader to step down or seizing power by force. These coups often have backing from insiders, sometimes even foreign support, and in some cases, public sympathy. We've seen this in places like Mali in 2020 and Burkina Faso in 2022, where soldiers arrested the president, and many citizens supported them due to frustration with the government. But this formula doesn't work in North Korea. The first major reason is constant purges. Especially in recent decades, the Kim family has systematically removed political and military elites. Anytime there's even a hint that top officials might feel threatened, undervalued, or capable of challenging the leader, they're eliminated. And that means execution, imprisonment, or disappearance. Take one example. In February 2023, North Korea was celebrating its 75th anniversary of its Korean People's Army. Normally, all top officials attend these events, but that year, several key members of the political bureau were noticeably absent. Why? Because in the weeks leading up to the event, Kim Jong-un had replaced a large number of high-ranking officials. When Kim Jong-un first came to power, he was young and inexperienced. That made his early years especially dangerous because his authority was not fully established. There was always a risk of betrayal from powerful elites. So, just like his father before him, he acted quickly to remove potential threats. In fact, Kim Jong-il had already prepared the ground. Before his death in 2010, he replaced nearly 80% of the political bureau to ensure a smooth transition of power to his son. After taking power, Kim Jong-un replaced another 42% of members and continued making changes, including in 2023. And this wasn't limited to politicians. Military figures were also targeted. Vice Marshal Ri Yong-ho removed for policy disagreements. Deputy Minister Kim Chol executed over an alleged offense. His own half-brother Kim Jong-nam assassinated abroad. His uncle Jang Song-taek executed over accusations of plotting a coup. These purges don't just remove opposition, they prevent future coups before they even begin. But that doesn't mean nobody has ever tried. There have actually been multiple attempts throughout North Korea's history. One of the earliest major challenges came in the 1950s. At the time, there were three major factions inside North Korea: pro-Soviet Koreans, pro-Chinese Yan'an faction, and Kim Il-sung's own faction. The Soviet and Chinese-aligned groups planned to challenge Kim, but at the last moment, they backed down. Why? because many viewed Kim as a true Korean, while the others were seen as influenced by foreign powers. After that, Kim launched massive purges. By 1959, over 25% of the parliament had been removed. By the late 1960s, almost all opposition factions were eliminated. Then came the devastating famine of the 1990s. Hundreds of thousands, possibly over 1 million people died. There were riots, strikes, and even attacks on food distribution officials. During this time, several coup attempts were planned, a faction within the military, a plan tied to an IAEA inspection visit, a small uprising in Sinuiju, and most notably, the 6th Army Corps plot in 1995. The 6th Corps had a serious plan. They aimed to seize communication centers, ports, missile bases, and then march on Pyongyang. But once again, the plot was discovered before it even began. State security moved in, arrested everyone involved. Around 400 officers were executed, imprisoned, or disappeared. This shows a clear pattern. In North Korea, coups are stopped before they even start. Another key factor, the elites themselves don't want change. They live privileged, luxurious lives, and they know if the regime falls, they fall with it. Even ordinary soldiers are deliberately kept apart. They're stationed far from their home regions, limiting trust and coordination. Now, let's talk about the general population. There's something called the 3 generations rule. If one person commits a political crime, their entire family, up to 3 generations, can be punished. So attempting rebellion doesn't just risk your life, it destroys your entire family. What about foreign intervention? Why doesn't the US or Western powers step in? Because North Korea is extremely isolated. NGOs can't enter, information is tightly controlled. The same strategies used in places like Ukraine or Georgia simply don't work here. And then there's the biggest factor, nuclear weapons. Under Kim Jong-un, missile testing has increased dramatically. If the regime feels threatened, they could retaliate against Seoul or even Washington. On top of that, around 1.2 million active troops, one of the largest artillery forces in the world, suspected chemical and biological weapons. Seoul, in particular, could be devastated within hours. And with support from China and Russia, any direct military action risks escalating into a much larger conflict. All of this makes North Korea a very dangerous dark horse in global politics. However, there are signs of change. Recent reports suggest the economy is weakening, food shortages are worsening, a huge portion of GDP is still spent on defense, and perhaps most importantly, fear and ideological control may not be as strong as before. There's also uncertainty around succession. Kim Jong-un has begun presenting his daughter, Kim Ju-ae, as a potential successor. That could create internal tensions in the future. So in the end, many have predicted the fall of the Kim dynasty, but so far they've survived everything. Whether this system eventually collapses or becomes even stronger, only time will tell.